On May 23rd, Donald Trump used a pressure tactic to accelerate negotiation with the European Union by threatening 50% tariff starting June 1st. He believed the European Union was being too passive and the talks were progressing too slowly. The market was initially concerned as the US targeted the world's second largest economy, fearing the European Union might retaliate in the same aggressive manner as China did during the trade conflict in early April. As you can see in the S&P 500 chart in the bottom, this is when Trump announced the 50% tariff on European Union. However, a day later, the S&P 500 gained 2% because Trump flip-flopped, right? Trump announced a delay after receiving a call from the president of European Commission who requested more time and promised faster negotiations. So as a result, the tariff deadline was pushed to July 9th. So the market is interpreting this as a sign that European Union is a lot less confrontational than China, because when US implemented tariff on China on April 2nd, also known as the Liberation Day, China immediately retaliated. Whatever level of tariff US give to China, China give the same number back, which continued escalation, which caused complete decoupling between the two countries because the tariff level was reached over 100%, which means that the two countries cannot do any trades. And that decoupling lasted for over a month. Okay, and eventually both countries reached their pain threshold and agreed to put a truce on the trade war. And that took effect on May 14th. So essentially, both countries decoupled for over 1 month during the trade war and eventually agreed to a 90-day pause. In contrast with European Union, no tariff has been implemented yet. Just a threat, a verbal threat of a 50% tariff prompt the European Union to make a concession, signaling the reluctance to retaliate. One reason could be that during the height of the US-China trade war, the EU could lean on China as a counterbalance to US. But now, the tension between US and China eased, and the European Union lacks leverage and the willingness to fight back. And the other reason is that Europe is also cautious about aligning itself too closely with China. So the market is very optimistic, seeing that Trump appears to be managing relationships with the two largest economies outside of US, which is China and EU, and effectively using its pressure tactic to pull or to bring both parties onto the negotiation table. However, Trump's tariff-centric trade negotiations are facing internal challenges, particularly from judicial branch. On May 28th, the U.S. Court of International Trade in Manhattan ruled that Trump's tariff policy was unlawful, giving the administration 10 days to comply and cancel the tariff. So this includes tariff related to fentanyl on China, Canada, and Mexico, and Trump's global flat rate tariffs. The ruling introduced major uncertainty, especially to Trump's administration, because the current trade negotiation with so many countries is already super complex. But now the Trump administration is facing potential derailment from an internal force, from the judicial branch. So if judiciary can halt tariffs, the other country may see no reason to negotiate anymore with Trump administration. They can just assume the American courts will eventually invalidate the measures anyways. However, Tom Lee remained optimistic, seeing the court's pressure on Trump's administration as a catalyst for progress. He noted that the bid-ask spread between the US and other countries are narrowing, meaning both sides are moving closer to an agreement. So you can think of US as the seller and the foreign countries that are negotiating as buyer in a trade negotiation. The seller wants higher tariff and better trade terms, while the buyer wants lower tariff and fewer restrictions. So what Tom Lee is saying is that the judicial branch stepping in and challenge the legality of Trump's tariffs will pressure the seller, in this case the US, the Trump administration, to ease its stance on tariff. Was the judiciary pressuring Trump to scale back or remove tariffs, the US may soften its stance, encouraging quicker and more constructive negotiation and accelerate a resolution to the ongoing trade disputes with foreign countries. Of course, the Trump administration is not happy about the ruling, so they appealed it. On May 29th, a new development emerged. A federal appeals court issued a temporary stay or pause on the lower court's ruling against Trump's administration's global tariff. This means the tariff will remain in place while the appeals process unfolds. So the appeals typically takes months. So Trump's tariff policy will stay intact for the near term. If the appeals court eventually sides with the lower court, Trump administration can further appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, potentially extending the legal battle for another couple of months or even over a year. So for the extended period of time in the future, Trump's tariff policy is untouchable. Some of the Wall Street firms has noted that even if the current legal challenges succeeds, Trump still have multiple other legal avenues to maintain or quickly reimpose tariffs, such as Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1947 and Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. So this suggests that the impact of the court ruling may be limited in the short term, and the administration's overall tariff-centric trade strategy could continue largely uninterrupted. Thank you very much. Please like and subscribe.